Welcome to the PTA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, John Caligiuri. I'm accompanied by our fill-in co-host, Caleb Nolen. Caleb, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you, John?
Caleb, it's good to see your beautiful face. For all of our listeners out there, Nick had school and was showing a house right now, so he could not make it. So I just want to say thank you to Caleb for being here on such short notice. We texted him maybe 2 hours ago to be our fill-in co-host, and I appreciate your time, Caleb. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you were on, I believe, our 28th or 30th episode a couple weeks back. Fill us in. What have you been up to? Just kind of who you are, where you're from for all of our new listeners out there, and kind of fill us in.
So my name is Caleb Nolen. I'm from the same town that John is from, Wheaton, Illinois, but I currently live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm a mechanical engineer. I currently work as a cutting tool design engineer, making stuff like industrial level end mills and drills and that sort of thing out of carbide. Since the last time I was on the podcast, I haven't released any blogs. I've been workshopping too, but I hate sitting down to edit those things. But so I have started a new engineering project, but it is a software engineering project.
Interesting. So, would you like to share the top secret?
I'm learning a lot about TensorFlow, and I had pretty minimal Python experience, which is a programming language. TensorFlow is an artificial intelligence library of functions. Well, it's a library of functions designed for programmers to utilize so that they can implement artificial intelligence algorithms in their scripts. So that's what I will share for now.
Okay, you just like I heard AI and Python. I was thinking about the jungles of Vietnam as soon as you said Python. So I didn't have anything to do about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, well, Python is actually one of the most popular languages to use when you're training models. It's like a lot of researchers use it because it's really good at scraping data to feed into the model. You can use Python's great at web scraping. It's not as good.
What is web scraping for the layman, aka John Joseph Caligiuri the first? What is web scraping?
Web scraping is when you make a bot, which is just a program essentially that you have written on your computer that will go out and take data from websites that it finds from Google or Bing or whatever search engine, and it will catalog that data for you so that you don't have to go out and manually collect that data.
Interesting. So what type of data can you collect any data? Or what is kind of the main focus? Is that like a really dumb question, or?
It's not a dumb question. So what you're legally allowed to scrape versus what you are not legally allowed to scrape is probably a more interesting point, but I don't really know specifically where that line falls. I know you can scrape data off of websites that you really shouldn't scrape, that you can get in trouble for taking. But for the most part, a good example is the Wayback Machine. Like a lot of people have heard of that. You can go on to the Wayback Machine and then you can pull up instances of websites from years past, like Cool Math Games from 2012 or something like that. They use web scraping to do that.
Interesting. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to kind of roll into the clip right here. I'm actually glad that you're here. So I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Let me pull it up right now.
Oslo, Norway, where more than 80% of new cars sold are electric vehicles. There are electric cars everywhere. The streets are quieter, there's less fumes. It's actually quite noticeable. So how did they pull it off? Well, they had a lot of incentives and subsidies for electric vehicles. It's actually cheaper here to buy an electric vehicle than it is to buy a gas-powered car. They also were really great about installing charging infrastructure early on, years ago. The government heavily subsidized it at first, but now it's all run by the private sector, and we've seen chargers in parking garages, at malls, at stores, highway stops. We've even seen a bunch of chargers at gas stations. They're removing gas pumps to put in chargers. So if you're wondering how Norway's grid has been able to handle all those electric vehicles, well, the answer is a lot of hydropower. Most of Norway's grid is run on hydropower.
So thank you for that. For all those people who are listening and maybe not be watching, that clip kind of broke down how in Norway they're transitioning from the gas-powered vehicle to the electric-powered vehicle. Some people call it EV. And I'm actually super glad we have a mechanical engineer, the mechanical engineer, Caleb Nolen, on the pod to hear his thoughts and opinions. I can just go first because I don't know what your thoughts are, Caleb. I don't know if that would work in America. Like, we're an American-based podcast. Shout out to our one listener in South Korea. We know that you're listening. We love you. But I don't think that could work on a global, not a global, on a national scale in America. Maybe in Vermont, where like everyone's the same. Basically, they're all a bunch of NPCs up there. But I just think that Norway is they're a bad example because they're so similar in such a small country. That's why it could work a little bit. What are your thoughts, Caleb?
I think so. I have researched this a little bit in the past. Norway is really good at implementing things that other countries aren't good at implementing. And there's a lot of studies that have been done on that. I'm an engineer, so I'm not really going to try to speculate. But something that is pretty apparent is that when you have a homogenous group of people that all believe the same thing, that roughly the same thing, they, for the most part, have pretty aligned ethical values in Norway. My uncle is from Norway, like he was born there. And I know that from the stories he's told me about living there, it's a peaceful place, and it's not a work-oriented place the way that America is. Really, no place is a work-oriented place the same way that the United States is, other than maybe exempting Germany. But I'm not super well-traveled, but from my experience,
We went to the moon, work-oriented. America number one.
Well, we're all based off of to a lot of the people in the United States, happiness is money, and a lot of other countries understand that that's not true. But I think that probably the biggest problem with the United States trying to do that would be the actual infrastructure that it takes. Norway is a really small country, and the majority of the people live relatively close to each other. So it's not like you're trying to stretch an electrical grid from California to New York. Like, we have electrical power obviously all the way through there, but for every person to change, for what was it, like over 80% of the cars in Norway are electric, or that are being sold are electric. And that's just if 80% of the cars in the United States were electric in 50 years, even 20 years, I struggle to believe that we'd be able to increase our electrical output at that same rate unless we started using nuclear energy and kind of advancing the power plants more past the 18th century coal that we've been using.
No, I completely agree that nuclear energy is the future. And also, like, I know you're an engineer, so you don't want to speculate. I'm a salesman and a banker. That's all I do is speculate. So I like the yin and yang of this power we got going on right now. But I did see that, I don't know if you recall, but basically every single major car manufacturer said by 2030 it can be EV. And if you don't know what EV means, electric vehicle. And then they all in the last quarter, when they were hitting their earnings, they all said we're not going to be all EV by 2030. So I do agree that nuclear energy is the future, and I don't think that you could do it in the United States, because one thing that's different, like you brought up with like a homogenous group of people, I think the one thing that makes America unique, and I definitely think it's part of our culture, is the maverick in us all. Of the reason why the Mustang and the sports car was born in America, like manifest destiny, all that stuff that makes America unique. We value our differences. I know a lot of people, like, that's like the ESG and all that stuff, and people all poo-poo or diversity, but it is like the maverick in us all, like against all. We love the the rags to riches story. We all root for that sports team who's the underdog. We love the Maverick boost up by our bootstraps and where you go. That's why I don't think you could ever do something like that in America. Not just like as a speculative, but just like in our DNA, we have to be different.
Well, I definitely agree there that the majority of people in the United States have just, I don't even know how to describe it, but just this complex of like, I deserve more than I have now. And I mean, I've met a lot of people who, like when I was in college through exchange program, even I had a couple friends in high school that were from different countries, and they just don't have that mentality. I think it's kind of detrimental in some ways, especially when somebody who has no skills or real dreams uh, believes that they are owed more. But what it comes down to is,
Expand on that point. I want to go down that rabbit hole. Expand on that point. How is it detrimental? Because I have a different viewpoint.
Okay, so I think that, like I said, in certain ways it's detrimental. I don't think it's more detrimental than it is helpful, but I do think that it's detrimental in that you can have people out here believing that they are owed something when they've done no work to get that thing, like higher pay, a nicer house, or whatever it may be, and a better car. And they think that that object or that goal, that check mark or that check box is all that needs to be filled in order for them to be what they perceive as successful or happy. And the fact of the matter is that objects do not bring you happiness. Maybe financial security does, the capacity to pay your bills on time and not worry about if your car breaks down, that kind of thing. But whether you have a Lamborghini or a Corolla, I think that has a significantly less, I guess it has significantly less impact on your overall happiness and fulfillment than people in America think. And that is why I think it's detrimental.
I agree with you. I agree with you there in terms of America kind of we work about money now. I feel like America's new god is money and success. Not even success. I don't even think America cares about being successful anymore. They want to perceive to be successful, like via social media. Not even social media. Like people, legitimate business who make a lot of money in California, not in California, but in on the coast where people rent a Ferrari and take a picture in front of the Ferrari for Tinder. You know what I'm saying? Or just to have a picture of me in front of Ferrari. So I do agree with you there, where America worships money and perceived value. And I also agree that my core values of is faith, family, friend, food, and food is community, like being involved in your community, reach out to that. I think that's the thing that will determine true happiness. And yes, in the comments section, you can call me a hypocrite because I do actively. I'm a banker and I'm doing a finance podcast, and so like yes, I am a hypocrite in that sense. But I do agree with you, Caleb, that that our mentality towards money is detrimental, but on large scale, like I love calling it the Maverick mentality because I just think that's a cool word. Shout out Top Gun. I do think the Maverick mentality in America leads us to achieve more than other cultures and societies of like just Apple, say what you want to say about NASA, just the blind dareness to like you said, some people have no skills or don't deserve to, who haven't done anything to get more, but some people like I have no skills, I have nothing, but I will achieve more, and they do great, amazing things. And what scares me is I think that's what people think the American dream is, as opposed to what it used to be of own your own home, like own your land, raise your family, live a happy, peaceful life. To me, that's what the American dream is. That's manifest destiny. That's how they got us to settle the West. But somewhere along the way, tell me if you think I'm dumb, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Somewhere along the way, people said the American dream was becoming a multimillionaire, and that's just not the case. I don't think it never was. It is. Some people say it is now, but I think if you're going down that path, you're a fool.
I mean, I could be snarky and say that in order to attain what you're talking about in 10 years, you will have to be a millionaire. But
I agree. Sadly,
they're like Will Smith and iRobot pays $55 for 2 beers or 3 beers. We're not very far away from that. Like, I mean, inflation is going crazy. So I understand that there's a massive push to prioritize money. And I do think that what you just said is right. At some point, it did switch to just become a millionaire is the American dream, or just become excessively wealthy. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing that people change what the American dream is. But I don't think that it's changed to something that's going to be beneficial in the long run. I think it has turned into something that at the end of the day is going to benefit the people who currently have, the current people who are currently have nots are going to be detrimentally affected by that mindset, because it's the all or nothing mindset. It's like, okay, it's the deal or no deal question. Like Howie Mandel was talking about how he had seen people come on the show. They have $50,000 they're being offered, and they're like, no, I want the million, and they turn it away. And he's thinking to himself, $50,000? You just told me you don't own a car or a house. You could, your whole life would be different if you had $50,000. But it's all or nothing, and that all or nothing mindset is not successful. It's just not a successful way to go about accomplishing goals, because you set your sights eventually on just the largest pie in the sky goal, and then you go for it. When you miss it, you feel bad and you don't get back up. Or not, that's not necessarily true, but a lot of the time that is what happened. I've seen it happen many times with people that I know that were trying to start startups. People that had promising core technology stop, and then they do nothing because they're trying to become Facebook, and then they weren't. And then it was so insanely disappointing that they just lost all of their will. And it shouldn't be that way, but because of the pressure of culture and our peers, people think that way.
And going back to the point of saying the American dream changing, you don't think is a bad thing. I personally think it's a horrible thing, very detrimental, because the original American dream was to own your own land, own your own home, and raise a family peacefully. It is the best dream, in my opinion. Like, that's what it should be. That's what made us the wealthiest country in the world, and also led us to great technological advances. Because, I know that I butchered all those words there, but going to what you just said of how people are trying to be Facebook. Well, people, I know everyone's always chases the next guy, but I think that's what moves us forward, is people figuring out, wait, Facebook sucks, or wait, Instagram sucks. Let me do my own thing instead of trying to do the next thing gets purchased. Like, if people are trying to be their maverick, their own, instead of being the next Facebook, that's what makes things so much better. And I think we'll lose that sight if people just want to be famous and have money and check all the boxes, as opposed to being who they are. Because that's face facts. Mark Zuckerberg sucks. Screw that guy. You know what I'm saying? Who the hell wants to be him? And did you see him next to the UFC? He looked like a complete nerd. That's one thing I hate about people like the tech people that I despise about American culture, is that at least back in the day, JFK was badass. He was a war hero. He dated a Russian spy when he was a naval officer. He literally was stationed in DC, was hooking up with a Russian spy. He got caught for linking with a Russian spy. They sent him to the Pacific, where he was a war hero. He was stranded at sea for 10 days. That man ran the country in 1960s. Ronald Reagan was a action movie star, and he was the president of the United States. You know what I'm saying? Those people were cool, made men. You had the mafia running the concrete business. Now we got freaking Mark Zuckerberg making decisions on behalf of America. What? You know what I'm saying? Who the hell let that happen? I think, not to go down that rabbit hole, but I think that's where we want to way of we're letting people wear open-toed sandals and who's never even seen a bra before in their life make decisions about America. No. We need to get those people out of power.
Okay. I have a couple of things I'd like to follow that up with.
Caleb, please rebuttal. I said a lot of things, talked a lot of shit. Rebuttal as much as you want to rebuttal.
So the first thing I'd like to say is that I don't disagree with you. But this is a point I have actually made in a previous, I think maybe the first time, no, it was when Kyle was on. The second time I was on, we were talking about the power of technology. So as technology advances, it gives a single person a larger capacity to produce in any form. So I can go online, and I've never designed an internal combustion engine before, but I can go on the internet and I can figure it out. when Henry Ford was doing it, he couldn't do that. It took him a really, and he wasn't even figuring out how to make an internal combustion engine. He was trying to figure out how he could make it in his garage in a repeatable way. And it took him a ridiculous amount of time. So the point I'm trying to make there is simply that Mark Zuckerberg, nobody voted him into power. He put himself into power by creating a technology alone. And it wasn't, stolen, he really stole it, but he's the one who brought it to fruition in the capacity that we know it. And so therefore he put himself into the king's chair.
Let me talk. I just want to say one thing. I think anything that's a good idea has been stolen 12 times.
Yeah, probably. Most likely.
Yeah, because you let me talk. I just want to get my 2 cents in.
So the danger is that you're now subjected to these people. These people have power because you can't take away private property in America. So you can't take away their private property, which is their invention. Their invention is massively influential. And people, regardless of the actual long-term impact of utilizing that technology, they're going to use it if they like it in the short term, because not nobody, I always speak in these blanket statements, but a large portion of the American population does not look at long-term effects of what they are currently doing. And especially when it comes to technology, they don't care how their data gets used. They just mindlessly click accept on that terms and condition page. I don't even know how many hours of my life I have spent reading through terms and condition pages just to find, not even because I really care what happens to my biometric face data, even though I don't want that getting used randomly, but I just want to see what is Snapchat leaving open for them to do with your data. And honestly, it is shocking. There are gross misuses allowed inside of what I would call a gross misuse of data allowed by way of those contracts. Many of them, they're allowed to sell your data to China and allow China to take your data, create a massive training set for an AI model, keep that training set, and then have that as a data repository accessible by a predictive artificial intelligence algorithm. That algorithm can pull up your face data in seconds. So these are things that don't matter now, but when there's robots that can walk around among us, even if you I think you'd be able to distinguish them, but especially initially, but even so, there's a robot right there that could kick my ass and it knows my face, and whoever's in charge of that robot doesn't like me, I'm done. And people don't really see that side of it, although there obviously will be restrictions, such as what's currently happening with all the people making the nude fakes of Taylor Swift out on the football fields and stuff like that with Travis Kelce. Now the Supreme Court's getting involved in that because they're this is not acceptable. But it's going to take time for those things to occur, and people are going to get the short end of the stick while those legislative changes are being made, especially because the people that are in the legislature, the people that are actually in charge of approving all the laws in our country, they are dinosaurs that do not understand anything about technology, the majority of them. There are some young people that are very smart, but they don't have the power to influence those dinosaurs to make the right call. And it's honestly extremely concerning.
No, the dinosaurs that are in office, I despise them. A lot of them were Vietnam War dodgers, especially on the Republican Party. So I have no respect for them as men, leaders, or tacticians. Shout out, who's that one gay dude, Lindsey Graham, who he had a meltdown on TV a couple weeks ago. He's from South Carolina. I despise him. He voted us to go to Iraq. He dodged Vietnam. He's a complete coward, and he's just a power hungry person. And I do think a lot of these issues could be solved if our legislative branch of the government had term limits and they actually did their job, as opposed to just do insider trading all day.
Yeah, literally. I mean, have you seen the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker?
Yeah, she's better than the Fortune 500 companies.
She's not just is she better than the Fortune 500 companies. She beats the top VC firms. She beats not all the top VC firms, but she's up there with the top VC firms, and she's in there she's getting the same return as venture capitalists who are making insanely risky plays. And it's how is this even possible? And then you compare it to the performance of actual mutual funds. She's smoking them. she's smoking these mutual funds, and it's like, okay, it's pretty obvious at that point what it is. You could literally just do all the same trades that she does, and you're gonna make money. You know for a fact you're gonna make money.
I'm sure this probably already exists, but Caleb, maybe another like engineering idea we could do is doing AI just tracking Nancy Pelosi trading and just do what she does. We could be crypto billionaires one day.
Yeah, most likely. There's a funny story about a guy that got caught trying to. I can't remember what he was trying to do. He was trying to get into Nancy Pelosi's computer. I can't remember what he was trying to do, but it was for stocks. And the dude was just like like a Reddit warrior and would not turn over any information. But people have tried. I mean, it's a real, legitimate, viable way to make money if anybody was able to accomplish that.
We're talking about Hillary Clinton's emails. Imagine Nancy Pelosi's laptop, like Hunter Biden's laptop. That's just hookers and crack. Like, I don't really care. To me, that doesn't, like, if you smoking hookers and crack, like, I don't really care. I don't look at you less of a man. But like,
I think normally people smoke crack and then they do the hookers. They don't smoke the hookers and do the crack.
Oh, people smoke hookers and crack, my friend.
Oh, okay.
That's the most awkward wink ever.
You're the Marine. you would know.
we have a certain SOP when you're done with a hooker. Yes, but getting back on track, Nancy Pelosi's laptop, the horrors that are on that hard drive, I can't even imagine.
Oh, I can't. I don't even want to think about it. And then also the hypocrisy of, like, it's not even hypocrisy. They're all playing the same game, but those people going after Trump, saying that he's doing stuff with lending and borrowing against his buildings and stuff, when it's literally just standard protocol that everybody in the real estate industry does. Like, they're trying to sue him for a deal that he made with a bank, leveraging a building that he had built, where the bank didn't lose money, he didn't lose money, the bank was happy, and he was happy. And they're trying to push a court case on it. So it just, like, that kind of stuff.
I'm a retail banker in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Some might say I'm the lowest on the totem pole of banking. And I just did what we do, I just closed a home equity line of credit. So, like, all levels of banking, you do that. So for them to go after him like that is kind of concerning, because everyone has access. If you own a home and you have equity in your home, you could borrow against it and do a business deal, and everyone can win. And if they're going to use that against him, is very concerning. Because I literally just closed on one today.
You can borrow against a whole life insurance policy. I mean, you can borrow against basically anything that has value. So yeah. The fact that they're trying to bring him under, sink him for that is just ridiculous. But also something else to consider too is a lot of these people have access, especially Nancy Pelosi with her current position. If you think that she doesn't know the director of the Federal Reserve, you're most likely wrong. Because and the Federal Reserve is a financial institution that is completely, it's not completely independent from the government, but a lot of people don't know that it is not a government institution. The Federal Reserve is a private institution. They have never been subpoenaed. They have been sent subpoenas. They sent them back. They do not comply with American laws. They do not actually do what they say that they're doing, and they don't want anybody to see it. So the fact that that's happening, and then you have all these people that are loosely tied to the Federal Reserve making just astronomical amounts of money off of Forex plays and that kind of stuff, it really makes you wonder what exactly is happening. And all it really makes me think is that I literally have no chance unless I come up with some kind of technology, because other than that, I'm not going to be able to make those plays. I don't have those connections.
Well, Caleb, I think that because you definitely can do it, because I don't think it kind of goes back to our I think this could be our last point, then you can rebuttal, then we'll wrap it up. But kind of going back to our original discussion of how the American dream has changed and America's money focus, and we worship money here. I look at those people, like I look at Nancy Pelosi, and I feel bad for them. Like I look at Biden, and I feel bad for him. Like, look at Biden's family. Like one of his sons died of cancer. His wife died in a car accident. His other surviving son is a drug addict, and he linked with his brother's widow. Like these people, yes, they have a lot of money. Yes, they have a lot of power. Yes, they have a lot of influence. But who the hell wants to go home to that family? Like you could like legitimately take all that money, take all that power, take all that influence. You can have it because I don't think you win. And like, what is winning? What is the American dream? Whatever. I don't know what winning is. Winning is whatever you want it to be. But I know for one thing for certain, I know winning is not those people. Like, just look at Nancy Pelosi. Like, look at her eyes. You know what I'm saying? Look at Hillary Clinton's eyes. Like, look at Ted Cruz's eyes. Look at Lindsey Graham. Like, look at these people been in power and have all that money and influence in the eye, and you're like, holy smokes! I have no desire to be like them or anything like that. And that's sad because those are the leaders of the quote unquote free world. And if you look at their leaders, I just get like chills down my spine.
I understand where you're coming from there. I don't want to be like them. I would say that the issue for me is simply whoever like holds the capital is the decision maker. Every dollar that you own is a vote. And if you and a couple of your friends own more votes than everyone else in the entire country, you get to choose what happens. So, and people, there's the voting that happens in order to place the president and place people in Congress. But the thing is, every person everywhere has a price. And maybe it's not every person, but every person in the government probably does. Because the type of person that wants to dedicate their life to getting into the government also is okay with having to make those weird deals that they have to cut work, even if they want to, like, they have to be okay with people being corrupt and with being part of corrupt deals, because
you're shaking hands. If you work with devils, you have to be a devil yourself. That's how I look at it. I agree.
Yeah. So the bigger issue, like on the macro scale, isn't just that I don't have as many votes. It's that those votes currently are being cast in awful ways. So we have millions of dollars being dedicated. I don't know if they repealed this or not now, but for years, and possibly still today, millions of dollars of federal money was being sent to a teapot museum that was worked into a bill that was completely unrelated. It was just that I can't remember what state it's in, but it was like a completely unrelated bill, and then somebody worked into that bill that, oh yeah, also if you want that first part that everybody cares about to pass, well, you also have to give this teapot museum in Vermont or wherever the hell it is $3 million a year. So they get that. And it's federal money. It's my tax money. It's your tax money. So those types of things shouldn't be happening. And we have homeless veterans. We have billions of dollars being spent on foreign aid. We have people living in the streets that fought for our country, lost their friends, risked their lives, don't have food, don't have a family, don't have any health care. And we are spending our money that's supposed to be like, when I'm paying my taxes, I'm hoping that those dollars go towards something that I would spend it on. And I tell you what, that money would have never been spent out of my pocket on a Ukrainian conflict with Russia, and it never would have been spent on an Israeli conflict with Palestine. If they have an issue, they can sort it out themselves. Those are three tiny countries and Russia. And we're honestly not a part of their business. So like Israel, we depend on Israel for a lot of we actually do depend on Israel in wartime for hacking. They have the best hackers in the whole world. But here's another thing too that people don't actually know about that, which is, I guess, is a completely different side tangent. But if you're part of, I can't remember what the name of the organization is, that is like their elite hacking and internet data group in Israel. But if you're ever part of that, then you have to attend yearly meetings where you come back to Israel, or I think it's in Israel, and you report to them about everything that you know from this past year. So we have those people that are in there, they're going back to Israel and reporting to that group. And there's executives at Google, Microsoft, every big tech company you could possibly think of. That group is getting insider information on. And it's like, okay, that's probably not good. And then you look at
that is a tangent that we can discuss in a different episode, Caleb, because we are at 35 minutes. Where can the people find you? Shout you Have you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, just LinkedIn, Caleb Nolen, or you can find me on Medium, Caleb Nolen again.
Caleb, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to the listeners out there for listening. God bless, and have a good rest of your day.